The rain didn't last long, did it? Good evening. My name's Alex, and I'd like to talk to you today about Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, Psycho. And I must warn you, there will be spoilers. I hope you like that camera move, by the way. That's our new cameraman, Matt. Let's get a bit more comfortable. If you've seen Psycho, it's easy to see right away how Hitchcock's film is quite unconventional in terms of narrative and cinematic structure. It was, after all, the first mainstream American film in history to show a toilet on screen. I think it's easy for some of us to look at the film in retrospect and say that some of the twists are obvious, but I suspect the same might not be so for a blind viewer who didn't grow up, if not knowing the twists outright, then being surrounded their entire lives by obvious references to the film which would indirectly reveal them. Spoiled or not, the film is incredibly engrossing on a level of tension, mood and character, but I think the most shocking twist to this day is when Marion Crane is revealed to be a false protagonist when she is brutally murdered 47 minutes into a 109-minute film. And you know how the rest goes. Gruesome stuff.
Mother! Oh God! Mother! Blood! Blood!
It's a shocking moment that flips the viewer's expectations in an instant, but like all good twists, it follows the same golden rule that improv does. Yes, and... You see what I'm getting at. You know this scene, 52 cuts, etc., where our protagonist is sliced up and our new heroes become her sister Lila, her boyfriend Sam, and a private detective trying to find out what happened to her. But to simply change to new heroes is not enough for a twist like this to work within the film as a cohesive narrative. It's shocking, yes, but what's the point? What's the narrative follow-through? Why did we need to spend 47 minutes watching Marion to appreciate the remaining 72 minutes? Well, the truth is, the film stopped being about Marion a lot earlier than that, in the parlor scene.
Sit down.
Thank you.
Forget the shower scene, forget the reveal of the mother. This is the one that does the real heavy lifting, and it's the one that ties it all together. Just two people sitting in a room and talking. Norman invites Marion into the parlor for dinner, and they just talk a little about themselves. Whether a viewer suspects Norman or his mother to be the killer, it's very obvious from their conversation that something is wrong. Norman seems skittish at first, and then as the conversation progresses, he starts to appear unhinged, and there is more than a little to suggest that his mother is not the only one with mental issues. This is reflected not only in the dialogue, but in the presentation, with Norman's face being shadowed, often shown from a low angle, indicating something off-kilter, with this stuffed bird surrounding him. The birds, of course, are a clear metaphor for... Anyway.
I think only birds look well stuffed because they're kind of passive to begin with.
Following Marion's death, there is no single protagonist in the film. The hero role is divided between three characters, one of whom also becomes a victim. All three characters do have distinct personalities and great chemistry, but the protagonist need not be a hero, and I feel that the true protagonist of Psycho, as seen from the parlor scene, is in fact Norman. But look, I've been distracting myself from a little to the right. Hard to find good help these days. Anyway, my point is, why did we need to know all this about Marion, see the world through her eyes, if the film is ultimately about Norman? In order to understand this, I'm going to have to briefly go into spoilers for another popular piece of media, Game of Thrones. In Season 1, Episode 9, Ned Stark is beheaded. There are a myriad of characters in Thrones, but throughout Season 1, it seems pretty clear that Ned Stark is the protagonist. He has about 130 minutes screen time, 50 minutes longer than his closest rivals, and it is until the end of Season 2 when Tyrion finally overtakes him in screen time. But Game of Thrones managed to keep narrative momentum for 5 more seasons without Ned Stark. As an epic with multiple stories, each with a variety of fleshed out characters, as an audience, we still have emotional connections to hold on to, and the central theme of power carries us through the story. Ned Stark's death is transformative of our perception of the story. It breaks our initial notions that the hero will always win through righteousness alone. Ned always acted with honesty and integrity, typical traits of the hero, but it didn't work out how we expect to, and it makes the themes of power dynamics more complex and interesting. In Psycho we have a similar principle. Marion's death is not only a shock to the viewer, but after her whole story and build-up, it furthers the themes of the film. And the main theme of Psycho is what it means to be trapped. Those first 47 minutes are so important to the overall theme of the film. How Marion feels trapped by her boyfriend's debts, her stealing the money, and all the voices as she drives away from the scene of the crime. Are they real? Are they just what she imagines is being said? Seeing her paranoia trying to dodge the cop, and realizing it is only getting herself deeper and deeper into trouble, just like my cameraman if he doesn't up his game. And now we return to the parlor scene and the most important dialogue in the film.
You know what I think? I think that we're all in our private traps, clamped in them, and none of us can ever get out. We scratch and claw, but only at the air, only at each other. And for all of it, we never budge an inch.
Sometimes we deliberately step into those traps.
I was born in mine. I don't mind it anymore.
Oh, but you should. You should mind it.
Oh, I do. But I say I don't.
Sorry, Matt had to go take a call or something. So I guess I'm left doing everything myself as usual. So later in the scene, Marion makes an important decision to go back to Phoenix and return the money, which as we later find out would be the right decision as the police are not yet involved. But unfortunately for her, it's too late for that, as she's stumbled into deeper trouble than even she could anticipate.
And so Marion is dead. And in most movies, our interest would waver. But through the conversation she had with Norman in this scene, they made a connection, based on the central theme of the film. And even though he is eventually revealed as the murderer, or at very least an unwilling accomplice to the murder that his other personality committed, we now have an empathetic connection to him because he feels what Marion feels. And we've just spent 47 minutes becoming deeply empathetic to her story. Marion and Norman's predicaments are very different, but psychologically, one has transferred, for the viewer, into the other. Jeez, working up a sweat here. I think I need a good drink. Marion is trapped initially by finance, and then more by stealing the money. Norman is trapped initially by his mother, and then by the psychological damage of murdering her and her lover. We can't see Norman's journey though. That would ruin the thrill of discovering it throughout the film. So, Marion is, in a sense, his proxy. In the first half, we see the police officer and the salesman interrogate a flustered Marion. In the second half, the private eye and Marion's boyfriend Sam interrogate a flustered Norman. Marion and Norman's conversation is the first and last time since Marion's initial crime where either character bonds over a mutual understanding. Sam, Arbogast and Lila are all likeable enough and have great dialogue, but they seem somewhat peripheral because they don't significantly explore the themes that were started with Marion. It's Norman who we ultimately feel is doomed by the trap he has made for himself. Norman is the villain, but he is also partly a victim of his mother, his other personality, and it's these empathetic traits that carry the film through to its conclusion, where Norman finally loses to his self-created trap, held prisoner inside his own mind and body by his second self. Of course, this is not to degrade the other elements that help make the movie such a classic. The cinematography is far above standard for the 60s, with incredible moody lighting, creative camera moves, and dynamic angles that help demonstrate the imbalance and discomfort between characters. The acting is wonderful, especially from Anthony Perkins, who infuses the perfect balance of approachable charm, creepiness, and anxiety to Norman. And Bernard Herman's score is one of the greatest in the history of film. But I think the ideas at Psycho's core are what hold it all together as a work of genius. Our typical understanding of films and stories in general is that we want to see what happens to a character, our hero, our protagonist. So it's easy to see that as being the essence of story. But a film like Psycho shows us that it's really the themes, the development of ideas, that lie at the centre of a narrative. Even today, it's quite rare to see a film take such an unconventional approach to cinematic structure. You could think of it in the sense that Psycho reflects not simply the experience of an individual, as many films do, but as representative of the common threads of experience that pervade over people as disparate as Marion and Norman, a strange sort of universality that can be drawn from such a dark, horrific and unique tale. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Next month I'll be releasing my predecessor's latest journey into the horrors of the human mind. A film called Paranoia. Good night.